Welcome to my apiary. So I've been working ahead here a little bit, building these drawers. I'm going to call them drawers, although they're only 3 inches high on the outside. And I apologize for that. I haven't made much of a woodworking video out of this project. It's just been rough shop furniture, but I think I will, because as I work here, there's a few things that I think you might find interesting to explain and demonstrate. As mentioned, I built 4 drawers here for my cabinet, and they're rough. I've been using a sheet of red oak plywood, so it's kind of an interior grade plywood, and it got left outside, so it got pretty nasty with some staining. The sun got on it, and a little bit moldy, I suppose. So I thought, well, I'll use it up for shop furniture since it's no good for nice furniture anymore. I mean, some of it's not too bad, but this is what it is. So what I've got here is, I'll show you kind of what I've done. And again, this is rough. I've just kind of done this quickly, so things don't fit together perfectly, but hopefully they're accurate where it counts. I'm using a very nice, rather expensive, I think these were 20 bucks or more a piece, well, a pair. They're sold in pairs, but it's what's called a full extension slide. And it mounts to the drawer, something like that. And then as you pull the drawer out, it goes out a long way. So full extension slide means that when you pull the drawer out, you can see that nearly the entire length of the drawer will be outside the cabinet. Sometimes, you know, a conventional drawer, you'll pull it out and it'll stop about there. These are full extension, plus the fact that they're very long. They're 28, I think, inches. And the fact that they are rated for 100 pounds of load per pair. So that's kind of what makes them rather expensive. And that just mounts right on that drawer. I learned a trick. I'm no master at this. I get it wrong as much as I get it right. But I learned a trick from Mark Spagnuolo. He calls himself the Wood Whisperer on YouTube and online. He's got a website too. He's a very good woodworker, very good at teaching. And I watched one of his videos, and he said, you know, people do all kinds of measurements and all kinds of things to put these drawer slides on. And he said what he does is he just places the drawer slide against the drawer. So he's got, and I've got it up on this one, but you can pretend that this is lying flat on, say, the table saw surface is where I do this. And you just put the drawer flat on the table saw surface, put the drawer slide flat on the table saw surface, and then you put your screws in from there. You put some screws in here, and you can actually pull this out all the way, and then through these little windows you can put a screw in back here. And once you do that, then that inner race is secured to the drawer. It's not going to move anywhere. You've got some slotted holes here too if you want to finesse stuff, but I find this method you don't end up finessing at all. And then there's the little catch here. You can bend that down. You pull the outer race out of the inner one, and at that point the inner one will be mounted to the side of the drawer like that. Then what you do, and again, instead of doing a whole whack of measuring, I want 1/8 of an inch space between the bottom of the cabinet and the the bottom of the drawer, okay? So after I've done what I just described, the bottom of this race is flush with the bottom of the drawer. So then when I go into the cabinet to screw this race onto the side of the cabinet, I'll just set this piece of wood that I cut, it's 1/8 inch, I'll set it on there and then screw that race into the cabinet, each end. And so then my spacing is done because I know that the bottom of my race is flush with the bottom of my drawer. And so now I know the bottom of my drawer is 1/8 up from the bottom of the cabinet. In this situation, I need to be careful that I don't overdo that because the measurements between my drawers, my drawer bottoms, my spacing, and my totes doesn't give me any wiggle room. If this is going to work, I have to be bang on. I try to keep those drawer slides off to the side while I'm working. I'm sanding, I'm cutting, I'm causing sawdust and wood chips, all kinds of stuff, because I don't want the wood to get into the little ball bearing surfaces and everything. You can't tell by looking at it, but there's a little bit of grease on it, so it's going to attract all kinds of dust and particulate. The drawer itself, again, 3/4 inch bottom, 3/4 inch sides. And, you know, that's just because that's what I had. And I arbitrarily went with a 3-inch outside height side on that. And so you can see that these are, you know, that's 3/4 inch, but when you look on the bottom, you can see that it's 3/8 inch. And so you can tell that I've rabbited the inside of these pieces, and I've dry fit everything, and then everything worked good. And then I glued that, screwed it together. A little bit of sanding to do here. This is slightly proud. I don't want anything to be proud under here because I have limited space, as I mentioned. The drawer slide, for sizing, the drawer slide, and I'm learning that this seems to be a universal among slides, and maybe there are exceptions to it, but all the slides that I've worked with have this property that the slide is 1/2 inch wide. So you take your overall width of your opening minus 1 inch, and that is your dimension of your drawer. Okay, so that's pretty easy. And in my experience, if you're not going to get that bang on, you better make it a little bit smaller, because you can always slide a shim in behind that slide. But if that drawer is too big, it ain't going to fit. The only thing I could do if this was marginally too big, take these screws out and run that along the table saw, just skin that off a little bit, which in this case it wouldn't be a big deal because it's shop furniture. But if you're trying to build something nice for the house, you'd be far better off to put a little bit of a shim inside the cabinet under the drawer slide than you know, mess up the side of your drawer, because you know, you might have dovetails, you might have some really nice wood you're showing off, especially in this case because this is a veneer. The outside of this, the red oak part, is extremely thin. You can maybe see it here. That's the veneer. It's come off of there, so that's how thick the veneer is. It's almost nothing. You can actually sand through it pretty easily. This is a case in point when I built these drawers, and again, I haven't put fronts or pulls on these, but they're the same heavy full extension slides. And I did make the drawer a little bit too small, kind of by accident, but you can see a slight gap there, and you can actually see the shim on that one. If I do put a front on this, nobody will ever see that. Remember in my other video, I was having trouble with my Jack. It's not a Jackall brand. Actually, I don't think there is a Jackall brand. I tried to look that up and I didn't come up with anything. So maybe that's just a name. My brother was here, and so we stood it up and used 4 hands instead of 2, and we actually figured out what's wrong with it. So I've got it working okay, but I still have to do a little bit of work to it to make sure it continues to work okay. So I'll be taking that down at some point. So I thought I'd mention that because you were watching me fight with that in the taking off of the ballast box. So back to this. This plywood is a little chippy, it's a little rough, it's a little harsh. So I'm going to run my little router, my half-round router bit. And I've still got it mounted in the router. Since last winter, I was cleaning up my hive top covers. And so you can see that it's just a little cove. I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but just a little round over. So it'll just take these. You can do that with a sander, or even a block plane. You can sort of chamfer it a little bit. I find the block plane with this plywood, it's a bit chippy and it tears it out a bit. So I'm just going to run around every corner with the little tiny router and do that. So even just that, just touching that, that's far more pleasant, far less harsh. And you can see perhaps a nice little round over there. I'm cheating here a little bit, using my nice screwdriver. Again, I'm not much of an authority on this. If you want to really know, look up the Wood Whisperer and learn from him. Very smart guy, and he's a good teacher. I think I'm flushing that. I think I'm flushing the front of this slide with the drawer. I can use a piece of wood. I can do it by eye. I think the very important thing there is you don't want it proud. If it's a little shy, you're probably okay, but you know, again, don't use me as your be all and end all guide. I've got 5/8, number 8 5/8 Robertson panhead screws, and I'm taking the plunge. I'm going straight into one of these round holes as opposed to the slotted holes. I'll try to go in the center of that hole. It's difficult to show you with my hands in the way, but so now that I've got it flushed on this end, then my fore and aft is set, and this just sits on the table saw, so it should be all good. Stretch that out. I can find a hole somewhere. There's a hole there. Okay, there's a hole there I'd like to use right here. And that'll give me the stability I'm looking for to then remove this. I don't know which way to go. There we go. And then I can finish off. I'll just put 4 in those. And then don't forget which end your front is. So don't flush them both to this side. figure out which end is your front end, which this end doesn't have. It's got a kind of a rubber bumper on it. And you slam that drawer, it hits that bumper. And so this one has a little tab. My little block of wood to flush that. That's just right. Stick that right in the middle of that hole. And go here. I could put, I could put a screw right there, and that'll pretty much lock it in. I think I will. We'll take that out. Oh! I know I put 4 on the other side. There's one time you don't have to be really all that consistent. Okay, so let's slide this in just so I can show you. Okay, so this is a little tricky, but you need to, I like to pull one out farther, get it kind of sitting in there. Then I can work on the other one. And the first time in, it takes a lot of push. And so this is, it should slide a lot more freely than that. The wheels on the cabinet are put in with carriage bolts, and I think the carriage bolts are dragging on the drawer. For what I need, that's fine. I'd rather have that than use up more space. So you see how that comes right out? That's a nice sturdy drawer. And it hits the back of the cabinet, so it's sized just perfectly. I've got my little 1/8 inch shims in there. These drawer slides, they're not left and right, so you don't have to worry about that, but you just have to worry about front and back. And also, I think I want to just make that shy of the cabinet, 1/16 maybe. Yeah, I'll just put a screw in that, hopefully. Doesn't matter exactly what hole and where and everything, you just gotta hold it in there, then I can manipulate it here and find the other holes that I want to use. It's hard to show you when I have to get right in here. I think you get the idea, you smart people. I tell you, that's noisy in that box. These always get really tight. Okay. Get the other one again, that rubber bumper goes at the back. That's where it whacks into when you slam the drawer. And you know you're going to, right? Just get that like that. Three more screws. Okay. So here's the one I just did. And this is real time. I have not pre-fit this at all. We'll see how good I am. Oh, it's not looking good. It's too big. It's too big. So I'm gonna have to take one of those rails off and make it smaller. Now, I was cutting my dados last, so you get to watch me change the dado blade. I haven't used the saw today, so the master switch is off. Might be in the market for a new dado set. If anybody's got any real world recommendations. This is an 8-inch Freud Pro dado set. 5/8 arbor, of course. It will go up to 7/8 of an inch, and I find that I often want at least that wide. I see some will go maybe a little wider. Just when doing rabbits. I do rabbits far more than dados. What's a rabbit, you say? That's a rabbit. That's a rabbit. Okay. A dado would have been in the middle. A rabbit has 2 sides. A dado has 3 sides. The old-timey name for a rabbit is a rebate. Some of the old-timers still call it a rebate. And yeah, I've had this sharpened one time. I'm not sure I want to have it sharpened again. And I beat the crap out of it with what I do, making hundreds of hive top covers and rabbiting the end cleats the way I do. So you wonder what makes a saw stop magical? Well, that's what makes a saw stop magical. That's got a really heavy spring, and a hair trigger in here. When something touches the blade, that spring pushes this aluminum brake into the blade and stops it. 5 milliseconds, I think they cite on that. So because the standard blade on a common table saw is 10-inch, and that couples with an 8-inch dado blade, then you need a different brake. This brake is not as wide, and it doesn't fit as closely to allow for a 10-inch blade. Can't really show you much about how that goes in there. Just slides in. Took me a little while to really learn that, but I can just do it by feel now. This is called a riving knife. Sits behind the blade. It moves up and down with the blade, and keeps the wood from pinching behind the blade. Now, this is a newly sharpened, it's kind of a combination blade. You hear me talking about teeth count. This is, I think, a 50 tooth blade. It's going to take me a while to get the wax off it. Newly sharpened quite a number of years ago. I don't remember when I got this sharpened. So I have to be careful not to cut my fingers doing this. You'd think that you could just put that in there, start it up, and that wax would come right off. I've never tried that. Something tells me it wouldn't work as well as I think it might. Yeah, so this is what's called a combination blade. This is a rip blade. It's got larger gullets, fewer teeth. I don't know, the markings are gone off this one. This looks like it might be a 40 tooth or something like that. And then a crosscut blade will have far more teeth, smaller gullets, just because of the way the blade ejects the chips. A rip blade needs a larger gullet to eject chips and dissipate heat too. There's a lot of heat involved in ripping. There's a lot of heat involved in everything but ripping, mostly. So this is a combination. So it's got, it's not an 80 tooth where a nice crosscut blade might be, but it's not a 40 tooth where a dedicated rip blade would be. It's a 50. So it's a combination. It's a compromise. And then it's got, some smaller gullets and then some large chip extractors here. It just happens to be the only other fairly appropriate blade I have right now. And that one, I don't want to put this one back in the saw right now because you can see how sharp it is. It's not sharp at all. I beat the crap out of this all last winter, and it's time to go to the sharpening shop. Go in on Friday when I go. Hey, everything happens on Friday. This one was done on Friday, or picked up on Friday. So sharpening a blade, I try to buy good blades. I pay, I can't afford to buy super high end blades, but I find if I pay between $50 and $80 for a blade, I'm going to get a pretty good blade, and that'll sharpen, I don't know how many times, 3 or 4 times. And it's only, I think it's $20 to sharpen a blade, or maybe less than that, at my local place. Very nice people there too. I really enjoy dealing with them. They made me some special blades. The blade I use on my radial arm saw is a bit of a strange blade. It's a 12-inch blade. These are 10. And my miter saw uses a 12-inch blade. But these days, most 12-inch blades are used on miter saws, and they have a 1-inch arbor. And the radial arm saw has a 5/8 arbor, like a 10-inch, but it's a 12-inch blade. So I had that conversation over there at the sharpening shop one day, and the nice lady behind the counter said, well, I'll just make you one if you want. And so she made me two, actually. They're really expensive, but boy, they were nice. And what's different about a radial arm saw blade is the rake angle. I use this ruler to try and demonstrate. The rake angle on this tooth is quite aggressive, actually. I don't know what the angle is. It probably would have said on here somewhere, but the paint's gone. And so the rake angle is right about there, okay? And it's measured in degrees. But on a radial arm saw, so what happens is that tooth cuts. It cuts the board like this, okay? Cuts into the wood. Radial arm saw has a negative rake angle, so the blade actually the tooth is actually this way. So it kind of almost scrapes the wood to cut it, which you'd wonder if that would work at all, but it sure works nice. And why that's important on a radial arm saw is because unlike most saws, the radial arm saw, the blade direction, the blade travel moves with the blade rotation. And that is a cardinal sin in most woodworking operations. Like this blade is coming toward me, and the wood movement is always against the rotation. If you ever pull it this way and the blade touches, it'll shoot that piece of wood right through the side of the garage. But with the radial arm saw, you can feel the saw pushing on your hand a little bit. You just got to have a firm footing and keep your wits about you and be ready for it. But it's also pushing against the fence. So it's the bottom of the saw is going this way, and then I'm pulling it this way, but the wood is against the fence, so it can't move at all. If the wood did move, there'd be big trouble. The blade would climb and bind and all that. So, okay, so now I'm ready to put this in there. So this would be a really good blade for me to use, a combination, because I do both rip cuts and cross cuts. The kerf on this one is a little bit narrow. I'm using terminology again. The kerf is just how wide the tooth is. You don't want a tooth that's too wide. The thinner the kerf, the more the blade will wobble, and thicker the kerf, the more material you're gonna go up the pipe into the bag. Okay, I need to remember to take that blade down. So what we want to do is something that's, you know what, we're going to actually run this right up to 3-inch, because I want to cut the entire side of that at once. So run it right up. I hate running this thing that high. It's just really scary looking. I'll take the screws out of one side. Robertson screw. If the bit slips, it means you're not straight in line with the screw, because they don't slip by themselves very well. Or your bits wore out or your screw is messed up. But I mean, failing those, you just push the junk. Okay, so this is not straight. That's part of the problem. Wow, it's not straight and square. Okay. Push that through there and see what happens. Safety glasses. Dust collector. So you can see how thin that veneer is. I've taken a lot of that off. And I'm thinking this is going to run me into a situation where it's now too small. But I wanted to take more off because it's not straight. This side is beveled down here. So on my drawer side, my drawer glide, drawer guide does sit down here. So there is that. This is the messing around part. We'll put these back on. I'm gonna turn this off. And fortunately I can still see my holes. And it's all glued. So these screws on the side are optional at this point. I haven't chamfered rounded over my edges again. Okay, how'd we do? My gut says it's too small. My gut's wrong because it's actually still too big. Oh, now I've got it past the locks. Okay, still too big. This is the part about drawers that I'm just not very good at. I need to watch more Mark videos. He's a good teacher, but you know, you watch YouTube videos and you think, well, there's always something you're missing. Because you try it and it just doesn't work quite like that in your own shop. Okay, I think this is looking better than the other side, so I think I'm going to take a little more off of this side. It's the side that's quite crooked. Well, I've mostly straightened it out. That's good. Let's put it back on. Try it again. Oh, we got a winner there. Nice. I'm thinking I should take this one out. Do the same. For some reason they don't want to let go sometimes. Sometimes, this is one thing I know, is when you first put them in like this, they do take a bit of a shove. And then they're better. This is still pretty tough to move, but I think it's sort of bottoming out on that carriage bolt. In which case, I'm not going to do much about that. I could tighten the carriage bolt from the other side, pull it into the wood a bit. But I'm not about to take it off. Try and raise it. That's actually pretty good. For my next trick, I need a 53-liter tote. Because this is what's supposed to happen right here. Now normally if I was just making drawers that were full height, I would take my next drawer. Actually, I wouldn't take my next drawer. what I would do is I would take my next drawer slide, I would put my shim in here and set my drawer slide on the shim. You know, I might want to do something like this. Set the drawer slide on that shim to attach it, because after I've put it onto the drawer as I've demonstrated, then what that'll do is it'll give me that 1/8 of an inch there. However, I don't have the luxury of that because my drawers are not yeah, you can make all kinds of funny jokes about my drawers, but they're not you know, they're kind of going like this. So what I need is I need my shim here, and then put my drawer guide there. I would probably still do it. Just put that shim right there. Stick my drawer guide right there. So this front here is not quite as nasty as this one, so I'm gonna just arbitrarily call this the front of the drawer. My little block of wood. Flush that up. You see me fussing with these, and you probably can't see them. The little plastic lever here that unlocks the slide here allows it to come apart. Now my front is on this end. Since the slides are not left and right, they're all the same, left and right. This lever works differently on one side than the other, or the opposite. So one side you push it down, and one side you pull it up, and that's why sometimes I don't know which way to push it. You just have to keep trying until it comes off. Another way to do this, there's jigs and stuff you can buy that clamp. There's a jig that clamps to your cabinet, and then you lay your rail out there, which I'm sure they work great. You can also do this by measurement, which I really should be doing, shouldn't I? And what you can do is you kind of measure that from here to here, and then just cut a scrap piece of plywood and use that as your guide. And since these are not very precise, I think I'm going to do that. So we'll just use this 2x4. that's kind of sort of what you want. I got that on the miter saw or the radial arm saw, but they're kind of covered in junk right now. This is what I'm kind of working against, is constant clutter. So I'm going to try and eyeball that. Problem is, it's not square. You need a speed square. It's got a little T on one side. That's a really nice little T square. They're not expensive. So I'm going to draw that line right there. And I'm going to cut it long because I can't make it longer once I cut it. I'll show you this miter gauge. This is not the miter gauge that comes with the saw. Although the saw stop is a very high quality saw, you generally don't get a real top-notch miter gauge with a saw. This is one of the nicer ones. It's an Incra. There we go. Okay, it's an Incra miter V120. This is the basic model, and you can get various models that have more features, but they're all built to the same standard and they're based on exactly the same design. So that's a very nice repeatable. So I'll show you, loosen the knob to change the angle, and then the angle is locked in with that little tooth. See how it locks into that? So you can move that to, 45 degrees or whatever you want to do and lock that right in. There's no guessing that that's in the right spot, and it's not going to move. So every once in a while I just have to buy a piece of equipment that's really nice and really going to work well. Let's put the drawer in the center, put the tote in the center, put this up there. And I notice it's proud of that tote there, but it's not proud of it there as much. That may have something to do with where I mounted this one on the cabinet. But I'm going to add my 1/8 inch shim in there.
It's 3 p.m.
Okay. Slide that right in the back. And get another screw in that. Now you'll be able to see a little better what I'm doing here. I may not be able to do it as well on this side, but I'll try. So you have to pull this out enough and get rid of the bearings to get a screw in up here. Some of these holes. This is the magic of Robertson screws right here. You see that? So that's got a long ways back in there. And judging by the last two, it's probably going to be too wide. Well, yeah, I think it is too wide. So these are tapered just a little to help you slide that in there. I can't see that side is my main problem. Okay. Oh, what do we got here? Like I say, they do need a bit of a push first time to get those ball bearings pushed up far enough. It's a little snug, but I think I'm going to leave it as is. Big question is, will it go in? Whoa! She slides the whole way. It's tight in there, but it does go in. I might try and do away with that shim, because there's more space there than there certainly is there. Okay, I should have two of those. This is a different manufacturer of slide. This is a Lee Valley slide. The others were Princess Auto slides. Quite a bit different price. The Lee Valley ones come with screws, but they're Phillips head screws, so I throw them in the garbage anyway. Because that's where Phillips screws belong, in my opinion. Okay, I'm gonna get smart now. Make it balanced there. I'll put a screw in it. Let's see how this goes in. Sorry if you lose track of where you are. You know, that's good. Good clearance there. It's still tight there. And there's not much I'm going to do about that. I could leave the lid off it, but then it gets full of dust and sawdust and stuff. Okay. Well, I'm calling that project done. There, you know, could they be better? Sure. If I built drawers all day long, I'd probably learn how to make that even better. But that's purely function, and that's what I'm looking for. I got to move on to some other shop projects. And so I'm going to close that one off as table saw cabinet drawers build. So thanks for watching. Have a great day. Have fun.